Thank you for tuning in to Sing 24 TV. This is the Nationalist show with Kennedy Abongo. Today we are going to have our interactive session with my friend and colleague Amos. Amos will be joining us shortly. We are going to discuss the going-ons of our nations, particularly the interview between Deputy President GACHAGUA and journalist Sophia WANUNA. There are several things which were said in that interview and which we feel are important for us to interrogate further in order to understand their veracity or their truthfulness. Government, people in government are politicians. Sometimes they would say things which are not entirely true, and sometimes they may say things generally just to excite the public that things will change. So as Jacob is coming on board to the set, do kindly subscribe and click that notification bell so that you are notified whenever we post. That is, if you're watching us for the first time, do so. And if you've been watching us, we really need you on board. And for our viewers who've been there before, do kindly help us share these videos and help us also reach other new viewers. Jacob, you can introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Kennedy, for having me on your set.
Yes.
And to our viewers, thank you very much. If you're viewing for the first time, welcome a lot. And if you are a persistent viewer, then thank you very much for your commitment to the cause. We are going to get straight into it. It's GACHAGUA's interview on KTN,
yes,
by Sophia WANUNA.
Yes.
So pending bills was on top of the list, as I may say.
Yes.
It stands at 500 billion.
Yes.
The proposal by the government, by Mr. GACHAGUA, was that they are going to create a bond so that they raise money through these bonds. Treasury bonds.
Okay.
And if successful, then that money that is going to use to settle the pending bills is going to circulate in the economy, hence money in our pockets. What is your take on this, Kennedy?
Let me first of all, for our viewers, pending bills are monies that are owed to suppliers, people who supply government with goods and services, and then a person is therefore owed because government, they've raised their invoices,
yes,
demanded that money from the government,
yes,
and then they are yet to be paid.
Yeah.
So the starting point should be, how have we accumulated all these pending bills?
Yes.
Because from my understanding, some of these bills are as old as
3 years. Yes.
Yes. So you see, that is concerning for a government that really wants to continue,
especially if somebody took a loan.
Especially because most of the people, most of these suppliers actually, most of these suppliers do
take loans. Yes.
And then with the rate of inflation, you find the interest again is reviewed. So the supplier would rather say, I'm not going to work for the government or to supply the government anymore. But you see, the government requires these people in order to operate.
Yes.
So that is why it is very critical, for one, that the deputy president, and I commend him for doing so, to recognize that pending bills is an issue. And again, then we have to look at why have these people, why has it taken so long for these bills to be paid? I don't know what the excuse that maybe President Uru's government would give, but what I understand is that it reached a point where the president or the former president reined in so hard on these people because due to corruption, he wanted to know whether monies were being paid to goods and services which are actually supplied. So you'd find a situation where the cabinet secretary or the PS would create a committee to look into whether or not the veracity of the pending bill, so that is it true that this kind of service or good was supplied, so that you don't end in a situation of NYS where people were paid for supplying air.
And did you hear that these committees, as per Mr. GACHAGUA's explanation, these committees were created at the PS level, accountants level, procurement officers level, and then chief finance level, so that it was about, the committees were to run for about 3 months working on the same. So by the time all it passes through, these committees run through all these offices, it takes about 12 months. That is a year.
That is almost a year.
So meaning a financial year is gone and no one is to be held responsible.
Yes. But you see, why is that happening? Because nobody wants to be the one who, permitted or allowed payment for monies, for goods and services which were never supplied.
Yes.
So everybody is trying to pass this blame.
Everybody's trying to play safe here.
We've had in our country people, especially from ministerial tender committees, being bundled into court, for just approving.
Yes. Maybe this person didn't even know.
They don't know, because actually people in the ministerial tender committees, they don't really know. For them, they just approve. That thing comes and then they approve, because they're not technical officers. They don't go to the ground to confirm
these things.
Whether these things actually happen.
They're just paper people.
So you find this thing was happening a lot. It started with the Kibaki government, and then it increased so much in Uhuru government, where people were being paid a lot of money for supplying nothing. So when the president realized that this is a problem, then he sought to entrench fiscal discipline. So fiscal discipline would mean that you have to really go deep into ensuring that whatever is being paid was actually supplied. And that became a problem.
Again.
A problem, yes. Because it is not now done in order to help the government do its works properly, but it's now
done to kind of avoid
it lacks the operations of the government, because suppliers are now left to incur a lot of interest, because most of these people, you will find, they got a loan to provide these goods and services to the government. So I think personally that Gachagua, or the deputy president, was quite right to note that that is a problem. However, when you speak about how you are going to resolve this problem, I think you should think long term. You should think long term, that how are you going to deal with our fiscal discipline to ensure that there is fiscal discipline?
His reasoning was that they are going to remove most of these committees so that the process is facilitated.
Okay, no, that is fine. You see, going to remove the committees is easier said than done, because then how are you going to ensure that there is fiscal discipline? We do not want to go back to a situation where people are paid for supplying air. You see, we have to really confirm that money that government or the taxpayers are paying suppliers are for goods and services which were supplied. The deputy president is also not being serious about his issue. This is not something you just handle with kids' gloves. You have to be very serious. Why did we have these committees in the first place? And why should we remove them? You must answer those critical questions, viewers, because at that point, then you'll realize the problem, because we have a problem in this country. So it is either we find a way of ensuring that these committees operate within a specific period of time, rather than removing them altogether without providing an alternative. And therefore, to this end, I believe, I personally believe that the deputy president was actually just playing politics. And I'm saying so because he should have come to that interview with a solution. Proper solution, that this is the amount, as he noted, and then this is how we are going to pay. If you're talking about raising treasury bonds to just pay suppliers, you see, so you wonder, how is government going to operate in these other instances?
Every other time we are going to raise.
Are we going to raise? So I expected that we have a more of something that is more of a long-term solution. So in terms of that, if I look at in terms of that questioning or the interview and the answer that he gave, I feel the deputy president was just playing more politics rather than providing concrete solutions.
In their agenda, they are pro subsidizing production. That is, offering, for example, affordable fertilizer to the public, or to the farmers. Wherein just a few days ago, was it yesterday or the day before? The deputy president already flagged off about 1.4 million bags of fertilizer. They are claiming that, like, Uhuru was, the previous administration was subsidizing consumption. So they are going to subsidize production in order to give life or to revive the economy. It's majorly based on the agricultural sector. What is your take? Because don't you see fertilizer is just one component of the process, of the production process. and most of the efforts are put to it, especially as per prices.
Okay. I must warn our viewers that I'm not an economist. I'm not an expert or economist in this area. However, I have had a bit of reading in terms of and I think everybody would know, any person walking the streets of Nairobi or Kibera or wherever, or the streets of Kisumu for that matter, would know that certain things do not make sense. Even the way you are speaking about subsidizing production and not consumption, because then ultimately it will be consumed. You see, so when you are talking about subsidizing production, let me start at that point. Then you have to define what is production, what is the scope of production in view of RUTO's administration. Is production just fertilizer
only?
Because essentially that is what they are telling us. So far the only thing that has been subsidized is fertilizer. And again, as you correctly point out, fertilizer is only one component.
It's one component of production.
Farming.
Yes.
And not farming, the
value addition process.
So when you do that and then you remove subsidy on fuel, and I discussed this I think in one of our videos. So ladies and gentlemen, you can just go to down there in our videos. You are going to find a video that where my colleague you talked about subsidies pertaining to this area, because here we are just going to mention them and give some views here and there. So when you speak about subsidizing fertilizer and then you don't subsidize or remove subsidy on fuel, then you have the same problem. You see, because fuel is being used across the board, including in farming. And then we are again faced with another problem. What is farming? You see, what is farming? So when you speak about farming, is it just crop farming? Because fertilizer is only used in maybe crop farming. What are you going to tell the fisherman in Kisumu who is engaged
before we get there, Kennedy? That is just another aspect of the question where that I'm going to ask you. I just want us to deal with the coffee, because this particular administration is focusing more on coffee, tea, and maybe miraa. Those are their key definition of farming.
Of farming.
Before we go to people on the other side, from the rich going the other way.
Which is again is very, very problematic, if I must say. It's very, very problematic, because their view of farming is more or less is
minimalistic kind of
minimalistic to say as you put it. It is minimalistic. But that again brings us to another, if you're just going to remain within that framework, when you subsidize fertilizer, you don't subsidize fuel. That does not mean that the cost of production will go down. And of course, another thing, you have to consider middlemen, because the production is a whole process.
It's huge.
It entails farming.
A lot of things.
That farming, all those things that come into it.
Climatic conditions. Even the climatic conditions.
Exactly.
Because we may put a lot of fertilizer and we don't have rain. It doesn't get to rain.
Exactly. So how are we going to manage all these things?
So is it flawed in a way? Is there
completely flawed? Because they're not telling us
it's kind of, we are banking on an act of God that is going to rain.
Yes.
All of these things are just going to go
the way we want perfect. It. The way they put it.
We are operating on a utopia.
But even assuming that everything goes the way they put it, you see, and then you have all these middlemen in between, and then you have the cost of fuel remain as it is. By the time this thing reach the consumer,
in the markets,
price will still be high. So when somebody is speaking about subsidizing production and not consumption, is speaking at something I would say it doesn't really make any sense. Because all these things are interlinked. If you are going to deal with these issues, you have to consider our tax system. You have to consider what we call the middlemen. All those things you have to consider, because the ultimate issue is how common mwananchi is going to buy this thing, because they are the ones who are feeling the burden of the cost of living.
And Mr. Gachagua is as per whatever you're just saying about common mwananchi getting these things at affordable prices. his reasoning was still based on the farmer.
Yes.
That now that we are going to sell fertilizer at 3,500,
yes,
the farmer has an extra 3,500 in his pocket that is going to cater for fuel.
Yes.
Or transportation per se.
Yes.
So to him,
yes,
that is going to make it even. It's just going to be perfect because I have an extra. If I'm the farmer, I have an extra 3,500 in my pockets that I didn't have before. Because previously fertilizer was sold at about 7,000. You remember? So. And then in the larger scheme of things now, hoping that everything goes as they've said, it's rained well, fertilizer is here, and then crops, whatever, tea and whatever, pyrethrum just perform well. The buying power of the consumer still is going to be up, which is going to counter the escalating food prices or commodity prices in the economy. What is your take on this?
Okay, first of all, you see, when you remove, let's say when you subsidize a product, it does not mean that that money is now going in the pocket. Somebody is incurring that cost.
Mr. Gachagua told us that
Mr. Gachagua is one of the worst people to reference in matters economics. The man is not an economist.
But he's speaking for the government. He's the deputy president.
No, he's the deputy president. And I think if you would realize, yes, you see, the Central Bank of Kenya governor, Mr. Njoroge, actually called Mr. Gachagua out on this shenanigans.
Well, I find Mr. Patrick Njoroge.
No.
I find Mr. Patrick Njoroge one of the most incompetent people in the country.
No, you could say so. He's an incompetent.
If we can deviate a little bit, viewers, if we can deviate a little bit.
He's an incompetent economist.
No, this guy told us who is an incompetent economist.
At least he studied a bit of economy.
Well,
Gachagua doesn't
Patrick Njoroge told us something that is unfathomable. Yes. Now, he was accusing the previous administration, yes, of people almost running away towards the end of the administration.
Yes.
That there was he averted a golden bag-like scandal that was going to take place in the Central Bank of Kenya. What if Raila won the presidency? Would he still be telling us the same, Mr. Kennedy?
Okay, first of all, let me start with this thing. Let me say to our viewers.
Yes.
When somebody attempted such kind of golden bag scandal, as Mr. Yes. Gachagua put it, it is
Mr. Patrick Njoroge.
Mr. Patrick Njoroge.
Yes.
That is what we call it. It's an inchoate offense. Attempt to commit an offense. Inchoate. The offense is not complete, but an offense nonetheless. So he should have gone to the right people. There is the EACC. Otherwise, what he's telling us is playing to the gallery and wants to be the beloved of the current administration. Trying to dissociate. One thing I want to tell you, that success has a lot of, and failure has a lot. These things we know.
Yes.
Success.
Many people
feel like they want to associate with success, but failure is an orphan. Yes. Exactly. That is what is happening. Everybody, including our CJ, you see the way she's happy, talking about God came down and gave her. Let's excuse the we are debating a little bit. But in the heat of the moment, we really need to discuss a lot of things. Yes. So, Mr. Kennedy. Yes. We really need to be very careful.
Before we go and hang Madam CJ and Patrick Njoroge, let's first deal with the agricultural situation in Western Kenya.
Okay. That is actually that is
because
bit,
we've not had any subsidies.
That is a bit. Yes, that is what I was coming. That was what I was coming to when you asked me about subsidy on because the government seems to be interpreting farming as just coffee, tea, and all those things that only concern maybe two communities.
What about
fish farming? What are you going to ensure? What about sugar?
What about cotton?
What about cotton?
You see, we grew up, viewers. We grew up when we were back in primary school.
Yes.
We grew up seeing cotton farming, a lot of it. In fact, they used to come with lorries to come and collect. Groundnut farming. Yes. It was so good. But now, if you walk in our place, that is Nyanza. You don't see any cotton farms anymore.
Yes.
Yes. And we don't hear these people, these politicians,
speak about
talking
how
about how they're going to
revive this industry. How are they going to deal with this? How are they going to ensure that we tap into this? Because we have the capacity to do it. The capacity. The Nyanza has the temperature for cotton growing, actually the best. So we would want to know, how are they going to deal with these issues? So when you're speaking about farming or subsidizing farming and you're only doing it to a few people,
you're telling
you are not really helping the country.
Because you're not connecting with anybody from Western Kenya. You're not connecting in that aspect.
Exactly.
Where now the definition of agriculture in Kenya is tea and coffee
and Mera to some extent.
Yes.
Because those are the people you'll find government will go out of their way to look for markets for them. We did have thriving on agriculture in Nyanza. How can RUTO government ensure that those are revived? How can you bring on board fish farmers? You see, because right now there are a lot of people who have started cages. How do you ensure that these people have got value for their money or improve how they can do this farming? You see, we would want to see the government deal with those issues because that is farming.
In terms of feed.
In terms of feed, actually. How are we going to feed?
Here, as we are speaking here, we are in fish farming, and so we know a lot about fish farming.
Yes.
We know that a bag of feed now is going for about 4,500.
Exactly.
Something that formerly was about 2,500.
Yes.
What are they telling us, or what are they going to do in that respect? We hear none of these people talking about this thing.
Exactly. And dairy farmers, by the way. Dairy farmers. What are you going to do for these people?
For these people.
When you, without playing politics, the government must come up with a workable formula. You cannot just subsidize fertilizer and think you are going to resolve the whole spectrum or the whole problem of farming. Farming is much more big.
In fact, it's not just
bigger
about,
than
for them. It's not just about the agricultural farming only. I mean, the agricultural sector only. They believe that reviving the agricultural sector is going to revive the economy, and hence we are going to have money in our pockets.
Another big mistake. And I think that's another big mistake. You know, the world is changing, and I think the RUTO government may miss the target when you speak about, when you just want to concentrate on agriculture.
On agriculture, people
are moving, and I thought that our government would see this. In even some of these countries, in Nigeria, for instance, we need to really, one of the things that currently pays so much is technology. How are you going to invest in technology? Because if you resolve the problem of technology or you improve on technology, these problems of farming, we cannot even have an issue with it. So any serious government on the 21st century must make technology the most important agenda. Because it cuts across. Technology is everything. Look at Israel. Israel is a thriving agricultural nation.
And it's in the desert.
Why is that so? It's because of technology. So if a government that really wants to resolve every problem quite easily,
we should really invest on technology.
We should invest on technology. I've never heard, in fact, even during their campaigns, not Azimio, not Kenya Kwanza, none of them spoke about technology.
It's not in the agenda at all.
In Africa, Kenya has one of the most talented people when it comes to technology. It is an area that requires tapping so that we can harness this technology to properly reduce the cost of living. You see, the government reduces the cost of living not by let's say subsidizing or doing this, because then that is postponing the problem, but creating an enabling environment so that businesses can thrive. And where there is a problem, such as with the legislation, then you deal with the legislation. Right now we know our problem with the cost of living. We know where it's coming from. It is coming from our tax system. Then deal with the tax system. But can they do that? They are not going to do that. Why? Because that is how they are going, that is where they find money to sustain themselves. The bloated government, people who do nothing in government. So a serious government, if this administration is serious, it should have been to look at how they can reduce the wage bill. The president himself noted that most of the money that government collects goes into pay salaries. How can we deal with that? After that, how can we invest in technology to resolve every problem that we are having? Subsidies are important, but they will never resolve the issue of cost of living.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you see, Kennedy is on fire, but now it's about time we wind up. Somebody also can claim that even in the USA, about 2.5 years ago, fuel was selling at $2.5.
Yes, right.
And now it's $5.
Yes.
So
double.
It's double.
Yes.
You see?
Yes.
Which means inflation is biting.
Yes.
And for most of us Africans, and especially African leaders, that is music to their ears.
Yes.
That is what they can use at home here to excuse themselves from blame.
Yes.
So Kenyans, be very careful.
Yes.
Kennedy, that is about it.
You are leaving me, but it is okay, because it is a very emotive. When you look at this thing, Jack, it is a very emotive issue.
Yes.
Because you see, for you are a businessman. I'm a businessman. And most of business people out there have started to feel the pinch.
Yes.
Like electricity right now, it's already
unbearable.
Yeah, it's unbearable.
Yes, because I remember even when they were talking there.
Yes.
Electricity now is up already, and then KRA is going to introduce inflation adjustment fee.
Yes.
An excise duty to go, which means excise duty is going to go up by about 6.3%.
Yes.
Starting October.
Yes.
Which means cost of living is going to skyrocket.
Yes.
And here we are now. Is going to affect us in a lot of fronts.
That is what I'm telling you. When you have a politician like Rigathi Gachagua, then he's being asked on economic matters.
Yes.
You see, and and then he responds in the manner that he responds. It leaves a lot of us to worry.
Where Cherargei claimed that they only got 93 million. Why did they into?
Somebody is claiming that they got 93 million. You wonder. The government is not a saving bank.
Yes,
Treasury is not supposed to save. Treasury gets money, and that money is disbursed to wherever it's supposed to go.
Yes. So they collect money daily and spend it daily.
When somebody speaks like that, it exposes their ignorance, and you wonder, why did we even elect these people? You see, because it appears that they do not understand the working of the government. For them, but they expected to have some saving.
It may be that we are the ones who don't understand, because we are the target.
We do understand, but there are a few people
who don't understand,
who do not understand, and those few people makes the majority, and therefore those people can be hoodwinked.
Yes,
that is why we made this video,
and that is why we are here.
Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you've been with us, do comment on your views on the questions that Jacob has asked. What are your views? We would really love to know your views on those issues, and also what you feel we should discuss again in our next video. You can also post questions. We can pick those questions in our next interactive session and discuss them. Jacob, thank you very much for joining me.
Yes.
Until next time.
Okay. Thank you.
You are indeed a wonderful friend who love Kenya so much. Thank you very much.
That is why we are here. That is why we call ourselves the Nationalists. Nationalists, we can die for their country.
Thank you.
We love Kenya.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kennedy.
Karibu.
Okay.
So viewers, that marks the end of our interactive session. I believe you've learned something today, and I do ask you, just be vigilant. Question these people. It is very important as a citizen, because it is your duty to question your government. Some of these things, if you feel something was said which you do not understand, come to some of our videos or interactive videos, pose those questions to us. We will respond to them the best way we can. It is here for us to do research on your behalf and give you feedback as and when you need it. Thank you very much for watching.